Welcome to this ASP.NET video on caching. This is part one of two parts. We're going to cover page level caching and some of the new table caching features that are supported in SQL Server 2000 and SQL Server 2005. To get started, I'm going to build a simple new website in Visual Basic. And the first thing I want to show you is caching at a single page level only. And first, what I'm going to do is simply spit out the current date time by calling response write on the system date time now, just to make sure it's working. Now, page level caching is going to allow us to tell ASP.NET not to retransmit or reprocess this file every time. It's going to be cached for us. Notice when I hit refresh, the time is ticking up. So let's make a couple changes. I'm going to remove this because I have a little bit nicer control ready to go that I wrote called this time label, and it's going to show the same date and time, but it's going to be a little bit nicely it'll have a nicer format to it. Okay. So that new control looks like this. So whenever I hit refresh, you can see the little green bars ticking up to indicate how many seconds has elapsed. That'll give us a nice visual clue as to when the page actually refreshes. So I'll keep this running and go back and add a feature that's been around since ASP.NET 1.0 days, and that's page level output caching. So that's a special directive I add here to the page, right there. And I need to set two things. The duration of the cache, I'll set it to 5 seconds, and we'll have it apply the caching to every page irrespective of the query string that's passed in. So now when I hit refresh, I'll get one for 47, but you notice over the next 5 seconds it's staying as is, and there just ticked over to 52. So that's page level output caching. Now, caching is great, but where it really shows its benefits to a site is when you're doing some fairly heavy processing on the back end, like maybe making a call to a database. And that's what we're going to add in right now. So I'm going to change this cache to 20 seconds. And now let's go and connect our system to a database. So we're going to connect our website to a database that's running on SQL Server 2005. We're using 2005 instead of SQL Server Express because I can easily show the tracing that's going on behind the scenes, or all the communication with SQL Server. And that is on a different computer, my main computer, Deskzilla, and I've created an account for me. The database we'll use is Simple Northwinds. Good. Okay, I'm going to take that connection string right now and copy that to the clipboard and put it inside my web config file. So under connection strings, normally this is added for me if I use one of the wizards. In this case, I have to put it in by hand. So we're going to add a connection string, which is what you just saw. I'm going to add the password directly. Now, this is not best practices. However, you can encrypt this username and password combination, and we'll show that in the tips and tricks video. But you could also use integrated security. In this case, this virtual machine that I'm recording the demo on is not on the same box as the database. And finally, let's give this connection string a name. Okay, good. So let's use that. If we go back to our page, I'm going to code this one up by hand. We need two things: a SQL data source, and that represents our SQL command that talks to the database, and that's going to run on the server. And let's see, the connection string, let me put this on a new line. The connection string comes from the connection strings NW, the one I just added. And finally, the SQL select statement, the select command, looks like I'm going to get 3 columns from the customers table: customer ID, the company name, and the contact name. Turns out you need that DBO to clarify the schema name from the database. That's crucial in one of the built-in SQL Server 2005 database caching. So let's go ahead and see. Oops, I need one more thing. So we have our connection. Now I need a data grid and give it an ID. It also is a server control, and the data source ID is the one above it. That's DS1. And that should be good. Let's take a look at it. Now remember, this time we set the cache duration to 20 seconds. So when I hit refresh, it's not making a query back to the database. In fact, we can switch over to this profiler now and enable that. Let me clear it out. Now when we go back to our page and hit refresh, notice there's no database traffic going back to the system. So we have to wait for 20 seconds to elapse, and there's our query. Now, this is a great, simple way of doing data caching. However, there's a problem. If this data somehow changes on the back end, you would want this page, the cached version of this page, to be thrown away and refreshed immediately. Now, that's been something that's been difficult to do in the past and is now easily supported with ASP.NET 2.0. And the technique I'm going to show you now works both on SQL Server 2000 and 2005. To do that, we first need to enable the database to support this table dependency caching. So in the .NET Framework 2.0, there's a command line tool, ASP.NET Reg SQL, that I've already got the command line here, where we're going to enable the table caching for the customers table in the Simple Northwinds database. So I execute that. Now you can see it did some stuff on the back end. Let me show you what it did. If I go into the Northwinds table, if I hit refresh, there's the customers table. But now I have an extra table, the SQL cache tables, and also on this customer table I have a trigger that whenever there's a change to this table, it writes a row into this ASP.NET special table, and that's going to be polled by ASP.NET to see if there are any changes to the system. It sounds complicated, but actually is very simple in action. Let me show you. So here's the data that we have. We want this page to change whenever we change a row over here. So to enable this caching, I have to do two things. We've set it up for the database. Now I need to set it up for my website. I have to make an entry in the web config. I have to go to the caching and enable SQL cache dependency and enable it first to true and set the polling time equal to 2000 milliseconds. And then I want to do that on the database specified. Let's see, I want to add for the connection string NW, which is the connection string up here, and I need to give it a distinct name as well. Okay, that's good for the web config. Now if we go back to our default page, we need to enable that caching here on this page. And that's simply by adding one line, or one little line here in the output cache called SQL dependency. And that's equal to NW colon and the name of the table. NW from Northwinds. NW customers. Now if we go back here and hit refresh, we see we have the table at 41 seconds and it's going to stay here in the cache. If we go back to our tracing, if we scroll down to the bottom, we see that it's hitting the database every couple of seconds. So let me clear that for you. See, there's a cache polling query, another one, but it works pretty well. Watch, if we go change a line of code, let me hit refresh. I have to hit that window of 20 seconds. So if we change this to a different company like Frostwolf and go here and hit refresh, it shows up right away. So that works really well. In fact, if we go back and look at the caching, you can see there was some notification back and forth that the table's changed, but it worked right away. So if we change this to my name, switch back and hit refresh, we get the change right away. Now this is great because it works with SQL Server 2000 and 2005, but 2005 introduces this new concept called the broker service, and this is a means to allow ASP.NET to serve as a client to where it can be notified if there's a change, and it will set up a dialog between ASP.NET 2.0 and SQL Server 2005. To enable that, it's very easy. It's the reason why we're showing you here with SQL Server 2005. Again, keep in mind that this version we're showing now is going to be polling every couple of seconds. So when I hit refresh, it kicks off the query, it starts the poll. If I go back to the site and simply change this to command notification and go back here and hit refresh. Oh yeah, I forgot, I need to add one line of code. If you want any code executed when your system is running, you need to create something called the global application class. When the application starts up, we need to enable the system to support this kind of new caching. One line of code. It's under system SQL system data SQL client dot SQL SQL dependency dot start and the name of the connection string. And the connection string comes from our configuration manager. Connection strings NW connection string. Okay. Now we can hit refresh and that should work. Now it looks the same here, but the traffic going back and forth is going to be much simpler. In fact, there's nothing. There's no polling going on at this point. So once we hit our 20-second window, you see the refresh, and again, it's a very quiet communication. If we do go and change the data, and hit refresh, it shows up right away. So we get the benefit of this page invalidation at a table level, but it with a lot less traffic going back and forth between the systems, so we don't have the polling going on. So you've seen with this video the output caching for the whole page that's been around for a while, and two techniques to enable table level caching: the polling mechanism that's working with SQL Server 2000 and 2005, and the new feature for 2005 only, which uses the broker service called the command notification. Try using this technique today to enable better performance for your next web application.